Boom! Brent Venables and the Sooners just added another weapon to the defensive arsenal. Four-star linebacker Jakore Smith is headed to Norman. What does it mean for the Oklahoma Sooners? Coming up next on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire at USA Today Sports, and the Oklahoma Sooners got another defensive commitment in four-star linebacker Jakore Smith. We're going to talk about that first. We'll also talk about Oklahoma's biggest questions coming out of the spring, as well as the top storylines with less than 100 days to go until the college football season. But Jay, let's start with Jakore Smith, a huge pickup for Brent Venables and the Sooners.
It's crazy. This is the first linebacker commitment Oklahoma's had since Brent Venables had Marcus James commit from Carl Albert last year. And so, as you all know, we only got one linebacker in the last class. And even though the room is not, the pantry isn't, the cupboard isn't bare really, right? We're not completely empty, but there's a possibility of three linebackers being gone at the end of the season. And because of that, now you need to go get more. Well, we actually have a linebacker coach that can go get commitments, and Jakore Smith coming out of Arkansas. So Coach Nate Dreiling was able to go out there, snatch him up, 6'1", about 195. Nice linebacker, and he was actual teammates with, if I'm correct, Marion Robinson. So over at, what's that, Parkview Magnet School, he just transferred to Bryant, Arkansas, and that's where he moved to, and he's going to be playing ball there. But he played ball with Marion. So man probably put in a good word to what he's liking so far at Oklahoma. And then Nate Dreiling went out there and said, hey, we need to go ahead and bring you in, especially since, he was at Arkansas State. So he obviously had an eyeball on him, at least for like the 2 weeks that he was there at Arkansas State, whichever one came first. But I like that we're starting to close in on some of the defensive players. Again, It appears that Oklahoma is now accepting commitments, and we're pushing for these players to come through. And I like the fact that we went after a guy that has a lot of high upside. He kind of reminds me of somebody on the team.
So yeah, it's the second defensive commitment in the week, really in the last few days. They got Nico Gendrau on Tuesday night, and then they add Jakore Smith now. So this is a very fascinating pickup because he doesn't have ready-made size. Like, he's still sub 200 pounds, but I think he's a guy that you can deploy at Cheetah. You can deploy him at weak side linebacker early on as he continues to bulk up and add size and mass. Because you're probably going to want him to do like Kip Lewis had to do and get up to 230, 240 if you can, without sacrificing some of his speed and athleticism. And that's what he brings to the table. He is an athletic linebacker. He's fast. He quickly diagnoses. This is what I've seen, is he gets downhill in a hurry and he's able to make plays on the ball. Somehow just has a knack for forcing fumbles. I mean, you go look at his highlights and the dude's got like half a dozen forced fumble highlights, which is pretty impressive. Like, that takes a lot, not just skill, but also a little bit of luck to be able to make that happen. So Jakore Smith, I mean, he had a lot of big time offers on the table. And what was fascinating is he had an official visit set up with Oklahoma State, but after he came to Norman and spent a weekend with the Sooners, canceled that official visit.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily a guarantee that he was going to then commit to Oklahoma, but it kind of put a little bit of the writing on the wall, at least in chalk, maybe not in Sharpie just yet.
Yeah. And you would think that he was going to probably make a visit over to Arkansas, being that he's in Arkansas. And like you said, the list is pretty impressive, from Nebraska to Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida State, Notre Dame, A&M, Michigan, Mississippi State, Missouri. I mean, he's Georgia Tech. He had some solid offers on that were recruiting him. And so he was pretty coveted. And I guess everyone sees the upside that he has. Like you said, when you watch the film, he does a really good job of finding the hole and filling it up. He's a really good blitzer. And he's got that peanut punch down. So he's really big in causing some fumbles, getting that strip going.
Mm-hmm.
We need more guys like that. But the big thing I liked out of him the most is he goes down the entire lineage of what we've noticed Brent Venables and this defensive staff have gone after. Dudes that are physical and like to hit people.
Mm-hmm.
Not ones that'll pull somebody down for a tackle. No. Someone that wants to hit somebody really hard. Sometimes to their detriment, that they'll miss the tackle and kind of go past them. But they're trying to take somebody's heads off. And that's kind of a big pickup you would want in the SEC.
Yeah, and you are going to make mistakes, but it's the old adage, right? If you're going to make a mistake, make it fast.
Yep.
And physical. Like, don't make slow mistakes. And when I watch him, I mean, he doesn't look like a kid that's slow to diagnose. He looks like a kid that has a good understanding of what he's seeing in front of him, diagnoses fast, and then gets downhill and makes a play. He's able to work sideline to sideline. He's got good lateral agility. He's got the speed to catch guys from behind, or even, when the angle doesn't look like it's there and he has to make it up, he does a really good job of tracking back as, he's making plays, as the ball's going to the other side of the field. If he's lined up on the weak side and the ball goes strong side, he's able to track it down on that side of the field. So that's impressive. A natural blitzer. You kind of touched on that just real quick, but he just has a natural feel for how to blitz, and he did it through several different gaps. A lot of times he was lined up as the Mike, and they blitzed him through the A gap, and he was able to not only get pressure and time it well where he's able to shoot the gap and make it to the quarterback, but sometimes he's not able to necessarily shoot the gap, but he takes on the center and he knocks the center back, like knocks him back, and shows impressive strength for a kid that's, sub 200 pounds. But then he also pushes off the edge and shows a natural ability to time the snap count and get a quick jump off the line of scrimmage. And offensive tackles don't even have a chance, man. And when he arrives at the quarterback, it's like you mentioned, he's looking to hit him hard. He's not just looking to bring him down, looking to tackle him, and has really good hands. I think he's intelligent with an understanding of, like, okay, I'm not going to get to the quarterback. I'm going to put my hands up and make a play on the ball. And that, I think that takes a feel. Not everybody has a natural feel for when to do that. He has a really good feel for how to do that.
No, and I agree with that. You can tell that he has a really good feel for the field, and you can tell by the way he moves around and watches the play develop, and then you see him just go immediately strike and go to the point where he needs to be at. So I love what he brings, and so that's your first quote-unquote linebacker that's committed, your second defender. And to me, John, I do anticipate this class to be full of linebackers. We do need the cupboard will be bare once we get, like I said, past this season. Potentially, it's not a guarantee. There's a chance that Kip or Kobe can come back and will come back. There's a possibility. Kendall Daniels is the only one I know that will definitely be gone, and if that's the case, you still need some young players though to develop in the background or whatnot. You'll still have James Nesta. You'll have Samuel Masigo. But you kind of need some more. You're gonna need some more young players to develop alongside them going forward. So I don't think that Jakore Smith is the only one. I know that there was the crystal ball or the prediction that we saw for Ben Wenzel, and I'm just anticipating that he may not be the last one. I could see possibly 4 linebackers showing up in this class.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them go deep. And after Nico Jendrau's commitment, Parker Thune put in a Rivals Future cast for Bo Jendrau, a linebacker out of Arizona as well. So we know Oklahoma's going heavily after linebackers because, the cupboard may or may not be bare after the 2025 season. Kobe McKenzie could come back. Kip Lewis could come back. Samuel Masigo hopefully will still be in Norman as well. At the same time, after the 2026 season, you're going to lose Kip. You're going to lose Kobe. If you get him to stay around for one more year, you're probably going to lose him after that year, at which point you're going to need to have started developing that depth and developing those guys that are going to take over for them. So good work by Nate Dreiling to land a blue chip prospect in his first 6 months or 5 months on the job. He's really hit the ground running, and Jakore talked about the energy that Nate Dreiling brings. And that's the kind of guy he wants to play for, the kind of coach that he wants to play for. So a good pickup. Again, the ball is starting to roll a little bit as the summer has heated up, both literally and figuratively. And we're going to start seeing this class really come together over the next couple of months. What are some of the top storylines in college football as we've reached the 100-day mark towards the regular season? We'll discuss what ESPN had to say coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like the feeling, the intensity, the buzzer beaters of a live event. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience, and this year's matchups are already delivering in the NBA playoffs. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. I've only ever been to one arena for a basketball game, and that was in OKC. I might have been a Mavs fan, but I actually went to Oklahoma City Thunder games. Those are the only games I've been to because the tickets were available and I was living near there. And it was fantastic atmosphere, fantastic seats. Go to Game Time. It's a total game changer. If you're inside the app, you can see what your seat view is going to look like before you buy. There's no surprises. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed over at Game Time. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, ESPN College Football released their top 100 storylines or maybe it's the top storylines. I didn't count them all. Maybe is it the top 100 storylines?
Well, no, it's 100 days until week 0. So they got like a whole bunch of just storylines and predictions that it's a smorgasbord of things to talk about.
What's the one that really stood out to you the most?
I think the fascinating one to me was the first off was the must-know storyline. So they have the set of storylines to start things off that you have to know about. And that one leads right into Manny Mateer and Texas and Oklahoma's offensive makeover. So I'm not sure who the writer is because I didn't see the actual name of the person, but last name Wilson. They kind of talked about
Wilson.
how
that's Dave Wilson.
Dave Wilson. There you go. And that's where we're talking about Oklahoma and Texas basically revamping both of their offenses. And the questions are, who is going to be the one that prevail? We've got young Arch Manning, who's going to be battling against a more experienced John Mateer. And then you've got Trey Wisner at running back, who's considered the best running back in the SEC right now, because he's the one with the most yards coming back, with a Jaden Ott, who has more career yards coming in from the pack. So you've got and quote unquote ACC, I guess you could say, but he got all his yards in the pack when the pack was actually pretty strong. So you've got a combination of those two battling it out. And I guess the big question here is, who do we feel like is going to have, who by the time they match up for Red River, who do we think is going to be in a better sync in comparison to the other? Right. That's the question.
I'm going to say John Mateer. I'm going to say it like I'm going to say that his first half of the season, I think, is probably going to look a little bit stronger than Arch's. Now, long-term career-wise, Arch Manning could, and even 2025 season-wise, Arch Manning could certainly have the better season overall. He could have the better career overall. Mm-hmm. But given that he hasn't really played against any significant competition yet at the collegiate level, I'm sorry, Mississippi State, you don't count as significant competition yet.
Not first year Mississippi State. Yeah. Coach, yeah.
But that game in the Red River Showdown and that game up in Columbus against Ohio State, those are going to be what tell us about who Arch Manning is. Now, if he goes up to Columbus and he balls out, okay, I'll sit back and I'll throw my hands up and say, okay, you guys got one, Texas. That dude's a dude. But I think the totality of the first half of the season, I think John Mateer could be having the better season. Again, Arch could have, or that first half going into Red River. Now, anything could happen in Red River. Like it doesn't matter who the better quarterback is, doesn't matter who the better team is. Anything can happen in Red River. and all bets are off.
100%. That's the best part about Red River and why we hype it up so much is that just about anything can happen. Usually the team that's the
greatest
best
rivalry
doesn't
game in sports.
Right. Even the best team doesn't always win. I mean, us in the big game really duke it out for that a lot because they seem to have a lot of that going on. And it's funny. I was doing a pod with one of my buddies that is unfortunately a Texas fan. So, he is one of those people. But we were talking and someone in the chat asked the question, would you choose a national championship or to win 5 straight over your rival? Now, if you win the Natty, you lose 5 straight games to your rival. Which would you prefer? And of course, both of us said national championship. Sure, we have no problem with being Ohio State, who lost to Michigan 4 times so far, and they're probably going to lose to them again this year. I'm just going to put that out there in the universe. It's a very good chance there'll be a 5th loss just because Michigan kind of has nothing to lose, and Ohio State's kind of like, end of the season, we're going to the playoffs anyway type deal. So I would take that in a heartbeat as well, but to me, I would like us to go out there and just beat them up. So I'm on your side, John. When I look at this game, I think the cool part about the storyline here is you've got Arch Manning and John Mateer, who have both been with their offensive coordinator / coach for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So they're both been in the same system for 3 years. So it's not like Mateer has been in there longer than Arch or anything, but the one with actual playing experience, pressure on his back to try to win games. I mean, heck, Mateer went off against Washington. Mateer had to play, so he's put up the 3,900 yards. He understands 44 touchdowns. He understands what needs to be done to help with some wins. And he's also gone through situations where he lost games and he couldn't will his team to victory. Now he's gotten that pressure and he's got that on his back. He understands what to do next and try to how to change things. Plus, he's going to be with a lot better talent in comparison, unfortunately. No shade, but just, it is what it is. His defense will be able to show up. Arch now has to learn those things throughout the game as he gets to Red River, which Ohio State should be a good test. So, John, I say I'm with you. I do believe that Mateer with a Jaden Ott should be able to, because truth be told, Texas offensive line is still young too. They've refreshed a lot. I mean, they lost a top 10 pick All-American, and they've had a couple guys that went to the draft that didn't get drafted. So, yeah, they're making changes as well. So the question is, will their line be ready, as me and you both expect ours to be?
Yeah, there's a lot of more experience along the offensive line at Oklahoma. Does that mean it's going to be as talented? We'll see. But you've got to go out and prove it. This is a big time year for Oklahoma's offensive line to show that last year was an issue with injuries and inexperience that really limited what they were able to do. Right now, they're healthy. Right now, they're intact. And so there's no real reason for this offensive line to not be much improved from what it was last year. And if they can be much improved, that's going to set John Mateer and Jaden Ott up to have big years for the Sooners and potentially push them into a position where they're contending for a playoff spot. And I think based on everything that we're seeing, based on what the schedule looks like, I feel like that's a real possibility for Oklahoma. I think, this is a great opportunity for Brent Venables to coach himself off the hot seat, which is one of their other top storylines. As you look at the top coaches to watch, Venables is among them. He's sitting at number 3. Now, there's a lot of names to watch, like Marcus Freeman, who's coming off of a national championship game appearance. There's Mike Gundy, who many might argue is on the hot seat, but also it's Mike Gundy. Who else is Oklahoma State going to hire? Or James Franklin. James Franklin has had a lot of success at Penn State, but hasn't proven to be able to win the big one. So Venables is kind of in some good company. And then sitting there at number 1 is Bill Belichick, the top storyline in college football for 2025. But it's a big year, man. And I think Oklahoma's got a lot to prove. And I still need to see them prove it on the field. And when they beat Michigan in week 2, I think it's going to satisfy a lot of the worries and concerns that many people have about the Sooners. But they got to do it week in and week out. There's not going to be an easy game. After you get through your non-conference schedule, you're going to be in the grinder. And how you perform every single week is going to matter, especially if you want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you got to take a trip up to Temple. Remember that. That's going to be an interesting one. We'll talk about all of those. If we break down rosters and stuff, I think we probably should do that next week. Let's go ahead and start looking at the comparisons early and start talking about that. But yeah, that Temple game is going to be a lot more intriguing than people think, even though Temple did fire their coach recently and lost most of their players. But yeah, it's going to be an intriguing one to talk about.
Intriguing in that we're going to be wondering how many points Oklahoma wins by, not will they.
Yeah, the fact that we're flying actually out to. I'm still baffled by the fact that we set up a home and home when Matt Rule was there. Yes, when Matt Rule was coach of Temple is when we set up this home and home, and Matt Rule has had 3 jobs since. So yeah, it's kind of weird that it finally shows up, and now we're flying up to Philadelphia. But hey, for those that like to travel, it'll be cool to play up there in Eagle Stadium. You'll see a whole bunch of Sooners. For us, Eagle Sooners there at the stadium probably for the game.
Yeah, so will Matt Rule be coaching Nebraska when Oklahoma and the Cornhuskers link back up here in the next few years?
That's a good question. Probably not.
Buy or sell? No, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, and that'll be an interesting trip. What's fascinating as you're talking about that is Oklahoma still hasn't made that makeup trip to Tulane yet. You know, the game that got canceled because of all the hurricanes and stuff like that. And
they got moved to here. Yeah, we had that back-to-back home games. Yeah.
And so, yeah, they haven't made that makeup game up yet. So, I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but anyway, just fascinating how non-conference stuff works down the road. But, yeah, let's get up to Philly. Get you a Philly cheesesteak because it's the only place I like to get Philly cheesesteaks. I'm sorry. If you've got a good Philly cheesesteak out there, you got to let me know in the comment section where it's at because I have not been able to find a good Philly cheesesteak outside of Philly in my 42 years on this planet. So coming up, we're going to talk what are Oklahoma's biggest question marks coming out of spring ball. We'll do that next here on Locked On Sooners.
The days are getting longer and weather is warming up and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Like they have a massive collection of outdoor essential items, tables, chairs, TV compartments, all of that to help you build your ideal summer setup. And so if you want to get yourself going and you can check your budget, they've got a lot of great stuff that's in the great prices that you can use. Like, for example, I went and looked and got myself a new patio set in my backyard and to go around my fire pit, something a little bit more comfortable because it's still a little chilly at night, but you want to go out there and roast a few marshmallows. The kids love that, so you got to definitely take advantage of that. And we're in the NBA playoffs, so I want to have a TV up somewhere and be able to have it sitting on a nice stand, watch the game out there at night, and hopefully not get attacked by too many bugs. So check out Wayfair. You can shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're excited about what Oklahoma's done this offseason. There's been a lot of positive buzz coming out of spring ball for the Sooners. They're getting ranked inside everybody's top 25 for the 2025 season. John Mateer is considered the top transfer portal addition of the offseason. Jaden Ott is top 20 as well. But here comes the big but. And as my son would say, don't say but, or it's the other but. What are the biggest question marks facing the Oklahoma Sooners at this point, Jay?
To me, you probably got some on both sides of the ball, but I'd say one major question we have right now is who's going to be the one to step out in the wide receiver room? I think that's, to me, probably the bigger one on the offensive side of the ball for me because we've now got ourselves a smorgasbord of wide receivers. We've got about 6 wide receivers we can talk about. The question is who's going to be the 2 with Deion Burks to start and who's going to be right behind them in the next 2 deep, which is important. Actually, with Isaiah Sategna in the 2 deep. So it's really Burks and Sategna is probably going to be your guaranteed main person in slot guys. Who's going to be with them? And if you go 4, it's Burks and Sategna. Who else is going to be around there with them? The good thing is you got options. The bad thing is you got a lot of options. So you
Right.
got the Gibson boys. We got to see if they're going to be healthy. You got Keontez Lewis as well as returning player Zion Kearney, who you want to see make that next leap, which I think he can. Showed us a little something against Navy. But I think that that's probably the one question coming out, especially picking up Jermichael Carter. Where is he going to fit in the rotation with all of these players? And the young ones we got with like a Manny Choice, a Elijah Thomas, in which we talked about him being probably the player that's going to break out this year. I can see him fighting his way in and getting some game. Ivan Carrion, we need to see something out of him. So that to me is a really big question that we probably need a answer sooner than later, because the other one I was looking at is like tight end, and I don't think we really are that concerned about that right now.
Yeah, I mean, you all have heard me talk about tight end all off season. It's not a position I'm too terribly concerned about. I think you can get along and get by with what you've got at the position, especially if they're only going to play a max 300 snaps this season. And Ben Arbuckle is going to rely more on 4 wide receivers, which, if that's the case, I like the talent at wide receiver and the upside at wide receiver more than I do at tight end. Even though we don't really know who's going to start on the outside, along with Deion Burks and Isaiah Sategna in 4 wide receiver sets. Even if we don't know that, I still like the upside better at wide receiver, because
Agreed.
I like the production that Keontez Lewis brings to the table. I like the potential of Elijah Thomas and Zion Kearney. Ivan Carrion has shown us when he's had, extended snaps that he can be a possession guy on the outside. He's really good at running that comeback route. Like, that is very natural for him. And obviously he's got the big size to be able to do that. Now just has to, clean up a little bit more of his game so that he can be more of a threat in the intermediate and downfield aspects. But you've got a lot of good options. So it's not that there's not talent, there's not ability there. And now it's just a matter of those guys, especially a Kearney, Carrion, stepping up and taking advantage of an opportunity, because there is an opportunity before them right now with Giovanni Gibson, with Jaden Gibson, still kind of coming back from injury. We don't know what the timeline is going to look like when they get to fall camp. How eager are Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, Emmett Jones going to be to get them out on the field early in fall camp? I don't think that they're going to be pushing them or rushing them in any stretch. So there's going to be a lot of snaps with the first team that are going to be available to work and earn a spot and earn a role. And so I think you have a lot of guys that could earn that role. For me, man, I would have come into this saying cornerback was one of the biggest questions. But the fact that they didn't add one in the portal, in the spring portal window, or even the winter portal window, they stood pat at cornerback, makes me believe that they think Gentry's going to be back and healthier than ever. And they trust that Eli Bowen is going to be healthy and ready to go week 1, or that Jacoby Johnson's making the leap, or Kendall Dolby is ready to move outside and be one of your outside cornerbacks. The fact that they didn't address the cornerback position tells me Brent Venables feels great about where they're at.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about for Oklahoma on that, is Jay Valai's recruiting and bringing in those 3 corners, nice size corners, and Malik and Cortland Guillory, as well as Tristan Haynes, who were recruited by some other bigger schools. I know, Tristan almost ended up at Georgia. They wanted him pretty bad because he has all the intangibles you want. All you got to do is put a little bit more meat on his bones, and he'll be a nice hitter at corner. But Cortland Guillory's a dog. Like, he's a dude that feels like he's overlooked, and he's going to go out there and show out. That is a pretty, big, to me, deal that they decided that, we're not going to go get somebody else. Maybe they actually want to play up one of the freshmen or two. Maybe they're going to let the freshmen go out there and say, hey, look, the scheme is you get physical out there, and you should be physical with that person. You stay with your dude. Don't worry about nothing else. You stick to that person, and you get physical, and then leverage the safeties to kind of cover up anything. I mean, if that's the play, that may be a lot funner than I would think, but while at the same time, we understand that they're looking for particular type of dudes.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to somebody about this recently, John, and I want to get your thoughts real quick before we wrap up. A lot of people keep throwing out that they feel like Oklahoma's kind of broke. And when it comes to what we're doing with recruiting and portal and all of that. But then I point out all these big name people that we got. And so I'm like, I feel like Oklahoma is just selective, like very
Mm-hmm.
selective.
Yep.
If they don't feel like you're going to be able to contribute immediately in some capacity, they're not willing to just throw a whole bunch of money at somebody that's not going to play. Am I off base?
No, not at all. It's the difference between going out and just buying a whole bunch of stuff because you can, and going and buying quality.
Right.
And and having a good understanding of what you're looking at, because what might be a brand name and sounds like the best thing ever when it comes to quality may not be. But you look at something that, okay, it might have a little bit lower price tag. It might have, it might not be like the big name on the market, but it's going to have a better quality and better durability, and
Fair.
it's going to be something that the knowledgeable scout, the knowledgeable evaluator will look at and say, hey, actually, this is better value than what this is, because this is going to give us more bang for our buck than that is. And that's not broke thinking. That's just wise. That's just wisdom,
Yeah.
And Brent Venables combined with Jim Nagy taking this understanding of like, yes, we're going to be involved in the NIL game, but we're not going to go overpay and we're not going to go overspend on players that may or may not be worth it. And we want to develop our young guys. And if we go in and we add players just to add players, it takes reps and snaps from other players. No, these guys have to have value added and they have to be better than what we've got. And if they're not better than what we've got, we're not going to add them. And I think you're right on, man. What they did in the 2025 recruiting class at cornerback, plus the emergence of Eli Bowen, plus the return of Gentry Williams, hopefully healthy, plus the slight emergence of Jacoby Johnson getting some playing time towards the end of the season, you've got some room to work at corner where you didn't have to go chase a guy in the portal that didn't fit your culture, your defense, whatever it was. You've got options. You're not desperate. And I think Brent Venables is seeing the benefit of, if true freshmen are ready or redshirt freshmen are ready and they're ready to contribute right away, we're going to play them. And that might not have been the case early on with a lot of those guys that were part of the first recruiting class of Brent Venables that was kind of put together in like a month and a half after Lincoln Riley left. But over the last few years, he's felt more and more comfortable with it because he and his assistants, they've been the one recruiting all of these guys. It's not been recruitment on the fly. It's not been recruiting somebody else's recruits. It's been, these are our dudes. These are the guys we want on our campus, in our locker room, ready to go to battle with. And they have more trust because they have a bigger, longer term relationship built with those true freshmen now than they had with those true freshmen back then. That's not to say they didn't believe in them, because those true freshmen from the 2022 class, they are a significant core of this defense going into 2025. Your Robert Spears Jennings, your Kip Lewis, your Kobe McKenzie, Grayson Haltons. It's just taken them a couple more years of development than what we saw out of, the 23, 24, 25 recruiting cycles.
Yeah, we're just taking a little time, and the good thing is that we're now seeing those the bigger 22 and 23 players. We're now at their point where it's like, all right, show us what you got. You've got the experience. You've played enough, and they're the ones that we expect to step up. So yeah, and that's kind of thing I've been preaching to folks is that they're gonna play. They're gonna we're gonna play the players that we've recruited, and that's exactly what this staff has always wanted to do. Is they focus on. You can tell they love their guys, and I have an appreciation for that.
Yeah. And I think that's going to continue to speak volumes on the recruiting trail as well. It's like, okay, yes, you might use the portal, but you're not going to use the portal all the time.
Like a live and die.
You're not going to live and die in the portal. You're going to continue to build through the recruiting ranks. And I think you see that with smart NFL teams too. They want to live in the draft and supplement through free agency.
There you go.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. You can follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube as well. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. You can also read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. You can go and yell at me like all the other SEC fans because my over-unders are starting to trend a little bit. Latest over-unders from FanDuel, wrote a little bit about that, did some predictions over there. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. Jay, what do you got coming up on Unfair Sports later this week?
We're going to talk quarterbacks. We're going to talk a little bit about Mateer a little bit more. We're going to do a little deep dive on some of him and why he's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
Ooh, you won't want to miss it. So again, go check out that channel at Unfair Sports. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. Definitely got to do my over-unders too, because John did a great one. I love it. They're so mad.
Got people offsides.
They're so mad.